The circumstances changed in Florida, where we intended to have the convention. As the circumstances on the ground changed, the president changed his viewpoint on having the convention in Jacksonville.
We're going to do some other things with tele-rallies and online the week that we're discussing. I'll still do a convention speech in a different form, but we won't do a big, crowded convention per se. It's just not the right time for that.
Coronavirus changing pretty much everything in our country, including how this political race is going to turn out. In Florida, the number of cases you can see here on the average there from Johns Hopkins, the 7-day rolling average, you see shooting up. And if you look at the U.S. daily cases and deaths is the blue line there, cases being the yellow line. And you can see where we are here at the end of July. Hospitalizations track in Florida that number as well, which is why the RNC is not going to be in Jacksonville. We'll see what it looks like coming forward. Let's bring in our panel, former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer, Leslie Marshall, Democratic strategist, and Steve Hayes, editor of The Dispatch. Ari, how do you think this is going to work from now until November 3rd, and what this election is going to look like?
It's going to look nothing like anything we've ever seen before. I think you have to go back to the late 1800s when candidates didn't campaign. That is probably the reality of no rallies, no public events. The debates are going to take on an even bigger importance because there'll be so few other events to measure, especially Joe Biden by. But you know, Corona remains, Brett, the biggest issue. And I'm convinced until the president successfully deals with Corona, it'll be very hard for him to make the economy or to make law and order, as he puts it, the main issues in this campaign. And that's why I thought he had as a welcome change this week, how realistic the president was about Corona, how frank he was, his actions in canceling the convention. These are the steps he needs to take to help reset this race and just face Corona head on.
Here, Leslie, is Dr. Fauci over the past couple of days and today.
It is so efficient in its ability to transmit from human to human that I think we ultimately will get control of it. I don't really see us eradicating it. We certainly can control it better than we're doing. And if we can do that at the global level, when we get a vaccine, I think we could really stop it dead in its tracks.
And really the hope is that these therapeutics come around and they're better at treating coronavirus before we get a vaccine, Leslie.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was talking to my husband about this and he said, look, this is a living thing and it needs us to continue to live. And just like us, it wants to live. Most viruses we live with, or we develop vaccines for things in our lives. We've heard of polio and other things that we survived, couldn't survive at one time and do survive now. Here's the problem though, Brett. We've lost a lot of time with messaging. We've lost a lot of time with making this political, and it's not. It's very societal and medical. We as a nation have a responsibility to wear our masks, practice our social distancing. I agree with Ari. I think the president's finally come around, but it's 5 months too late. I mean, if we had been told as a nation, social distance, put your mask on, or lock the place down for 3 weeks, this would be perhaps a different conversation, but definitely with the election in November, COVID-19 is on the ballot, and the president's handling of it will be the referendum on whether or not he has 4 more years or he goes into retirement as president of the United States. Well,
I will say that there is a push, there has always been a push for social distancing. We did close the country down for some time. Steve, the question is whether there's going to be a reclose in some places because of the spikes we've seen, and whether that's, you know, a good thing in the big picture. Obviously, the economy and coronavirus is tied together.
Very closely tied together. And look, I think I agree with Ari and I agree with Leslie. What we've seen from the president this week is better. It's good that he's changed his position on masks. It's good that he's pushing people to take this more seriously than he has. But I think looking at the polls today, it certainly seems that people have come to the conclusion that the way that he handled it to this point wasn't positive. He didn't do a good job on it. And if you look back at some of the specifics that we now know help curb the virus, help control the virus, as Dr. Fauci said, things like wearing masks, et cetera. The president was on the wrong side of those things. He was mocking reporters in the briefing room for wearing masks, saying it was politically correct of them to wear masks. He said we were going to be open by Easter, which was, I think, certainly premature and not what was consistent with his own White House guidelines. So I think it's a good thing that he's not going to be trying to hold the convention in Jacksonville or Charlotte. I think it's a good thing that he's wearing masks. I think it's catastrophic that we didn't do a lot of these things early.
All right. In the meantime, as we look at this election, the Trump campaign is pointing towards voter enthusiasm. Take a listen, Ari.
Our supporters will stand through rain, sleet, snow, hail, and crawl across broken glass to vote for Donald Trump. Joe Biden supporters won't even click on a link to watch him do a Q&A.
Rough there from Charlemagne the God. Ari?
Yeah, and Hogan Gidley, the spokesman there, is 100% right. Very few people are clicking on Joe Biden's links. I mean, Joe Biden has an enthusiasm problem of his own. And in a traditional year, that would really be one of the things that takes Joe Biden down. The difference is Democrats can't wait to get out to vote against Donald Trump, regardless of whether it's for Joe Biden or not. And that's why I still think this is going to be a 50-50 election. Biden does have a lot of weaknesses, and I still think there's a real opportunity for the president to do better than most Republicans ever do with African Americans. I still think he's on track for about 15% of the African American vote. And if the African American vote doesn't come out in huge numbers, the way they traditionally do for Democrats or did for Barack Obama, it can also really hurt Joe Biden in a lot of the industrial battleground states.
All right, I want to save time for the lightning round, but I want to do a lightning trip to the Candidate Casino. And this is VP Candidate Casino for Joe Biden's pick. You got $100 in chips. Really fast. Leslie first.
Senator Kamala Harris, $60, and I'll put $30 each. I'll split the rest $30 on Representative Karen Bass, and then $10, forgive my bad math there, on Representative Val Demings.
They told me there'd be no math. Steve?
No wonder we have deficits with people like Leslie calculating. 25 on Tammy Duckworth, 15 on Val Demings, 15 on Kamala Harris, 15 on Karen Bass, and 10 on Susan Rice. I think Tammy Duckworth should be Vice President Biden's pick for campaign reasons.
And you put 20 on the field? I mean, do you ever make money at a casino, or?
I mean, you've been there with me before, right?
All right.
You know.
All right.
I'm betting low on lots. I've got $20 on Karen Bass, the California Congresswoman, head of the Congressional Black Caucus, 20 for Senator Tammy Duckworth, a veteran senator from Illinois, 20 for Val Demings, Florida Congresswoman, impeachment manager, and essentially the rest on the field and on nobodies. I don't think it'll be Kamala Harris. I bet only 5 on her. It's close to 0 as you can get.
Wow. Again, spread the chips.
Just this week, we announced the closure of the Chinese consulate in Houston because it was a hub of spying and intellectual property theft. We reversed 2 weeks ago 8 years of cheek turning with respect to international law in the South China Sea.
So our action to direct the closure of the PRC Consulate General in Houston was taken to protect American intellectual property and Americans' private information.
China has put forward specific requirements for the U.S. consulate in Chengdu to stop all operations and activities. Diplomacy must be reciprocal.
Consulate closures here and in China. We're back with the panel. Steve, it is deteriorating. You wonder where the U.S.-China relationship is going to go as we get closer to the election.
Yeah, look, it's unfortunate. You would like to think that we could have better relations with China, but China won't let us have better relations with China. China has been doing this for years. China has been stealing our intellectual property, been stealing government secrets. They've been in our government computer systems. They've been acting like an adversary, if not an enemy. I think it's good that the Trump administration has decided to treat them like the adversary that they seem determined to be, and I think it was entirely appropriate to close the consulate in Houston.
All right, it's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and I think the bigger question is after the election, what happens with China. Look, nothing is of greater consequence than what President Trump has been doing with China. They are a huge rival, and they became powerful by deceit, by cheating, and by theft. And so I'm glad the president is doing what he's doing and is standing up to them.
All right, there's declassified documents of the FBI intelligence briefing to then candidate Trump, August of 2016. During the ODNI briefs, Ryder actively listened for topics or questions regarding the Russian Federation, more details about basically spying early on, trying to get information about the Trump campaign. Here is the president and Representative Collins.
This is illegal as can be. This is treason. They spied on the campaign both before and after victory.
I'm so happy that John Ratcliffe is there. He is a good friend that we have worked together on this hand in glove, and I'm so happy he's actually now getting to the point where he's saying, no, we're not going to tolerate this. This country needs transparency, and they need to know what they did to this president. They need to know what they did as a candidate, and they need to know how they came very close to trying to subvert an election. That's why it's so important to get it out now before this election.
You know, Leslie, this doesn't get covered anyplace else, but it is, too, a big deal.
It definitely is a big deal, but, you know, a couple of the problems and things that make people on my side of the aisle, Brett, go, our Inspector General Michael Horowitz was extremely thorough, and why we weren't hearing more about this then and what will we hear from Durham and that report going forward, that's definitely there. And then the timing of this, the timing of the release and the timing of allegation that this whole meeting was supposed to be a cover-up instead of an actual briefing. Again, the timing with the election around the corner, especially the president's poll numbers, really in a free fall right now, makes a lot of us raise an eyebrow on the left.
Well, sure. It's just getting declassified by the new ODNI, but we'll see where Durham goes, and we'll cover it always. All right, here we go. Winners and losers. Quickly, Steve?
Yeah, the winner is Liz Cheney, who stood down an ambush from fellow Republicans who claimed she was insufficiently loyal to President Trump. And then when the president tweeted at her, she stood up and said, look, there's no secret that I have disagreements with the president, but my job is to represent my constituents and do good work in Congress. My loser is John Weaver from the Lincoln Project, who this week told the Washington Post that his group, which is supposedly acting on behalf of Republicans who are frustrated with Donald Trump, would serve in the event of a Joe Biden presidency as an enforcer of sorts, going after Republicans who thwart Joe Biden's agenda. There's nothing wrong with being a Democrat, but if you're a Democrat, you should call yourself a Democrat.
There you go. All right, quickly, winner and loser.
Winners, the New York Yankees. The Yankees are undefeated. They defeated the world champion Nationals last night, and every single one of them stood for the national anthem. The losers are the government officials in Portland, Oregon. They have turned their city over to lawless forces. They have abandoned what we need for public safety. They have attacked federal authorities with the worst messages. And what they've learned is that weakness only leads to more rioters.
Can you do 10 seconds, winner and loser, Leslie?
Yes, I can. The winner, AOC, for when she was attacked by my loser, Congressman Ted Yoho, spoke like I would, which is I am somebody's daughter. And shame on Yoho. He was not just attacking her, but all women. And Ari, go Sox.
There you go. That was 12 seconds. All right. Thank you, panel.